In the Middle East, the man who planned the October 7th assault against Israel has been named as the new leader of Hamas, raising tensions in the region further. For more on this, we have our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji in the studio. Welcome back, Eun-ji.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us once more. So our first question for you this week is, Hamas has chosen one of its most powerful figures to be its political leader. So please tell us what we know more about him.
Right, so this week Hamas chose Yahya Sinwar as the head of its new political bureau to replace Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in a presumed Israeli strike in Iran. The 61-year-old leader was born in a refugee camp in Gaza and spent at least 22 years of his adult life in Israeli prisons. And as you mentioned, he is believed to be the mastermind behind the planning and execution of the October 7th attack, when Hamas killed more than 1,000 people and took over 200 others as hostages. Sinwar has not been seen in public since the devastating attacks, defying Israel's attempts to kill him since the start of the war.
Right, so then what does this appointment mean to the ceasefire talks?
Well, this is not a good news regarding ceasefire efforts because Sinwar is seen as a hardliner, which further raises uncertainty over truce talks that are already rattled by the assassination of his predecessor. So it appears that Haniyeh's killing has actually resulted in a much more extreme leader for Hamas, which shows that the group is reinforcing a radical path as it's less likely to compromise.
Right, so how are other countries responding to this appointment of the new Hamas leader?
Well, the Israeli military has vowed to target Sinwar, calling him a murderer. Israel's military chief of staff said Wednesday that the decision to name Sinwar as its new leader is responsible for the planning and execution of what happened on October 7th.
We will make an effort to find him and attack him, and they can replace once again the head of the political bureau.
The U.S. also showed discontent, calling Sinwar a terrorist, while saying Washington is making efforts to de-escalate the situation in the region.
Man's a terrorist. He has an awful lot of blood on his hands. This guy was the architect of the 7th of October attacks in Israel. We don't want to see this conflict escalate. We certainly don't want to see any sort of all-out regional war. And there's not a whole lot of indications that other parties here want to see the same thing, which is why we're working really, really hard with intense diplomacy to try to avoid an escalation.
Last Friday, the U.S. announced that it'll deploy additional military resources to the Middle East, including an aircraft carrier, an additional fighter jet squadron, Navy cruisers, and destroyer ships. This comes as Israel braces for a likely attack from Iran and Iranian-backed Lebanese group Hezbollah. Iran has reportedly vowed to carry out a revenge attack against Israel over Haniyeh's killing in Tehran, and Hezbollah also threatened to retaliate in response to the killing of its military commander by Israel last week, without specifying the form or the timing of the attack.
Right, so the situation in the Middle East seems to be getting more serious. So I want to ask you, how is the South Korean government working to protect Korean nationals in the region?
While Israel remains on alert, Seoul's foreign ministry has strongly advised people in Israel and Lebanon to leave as soon as possible. South Korea has issued a level 3 travel alert in Israel and Lebanon, which calls for people to leave the countries. The Gaza Strip is under a level 4 alert, the highest of the 4-scale travel warning system, completely banning travel to the area.
The government strongly urges our citizens currently residing in Israel and Lebanon, where a level 3 travel alert has been issued due to the recent situation in the Middle East, to leave as soon as possible using available flights.
As of Friday, there are currently around 540 Koreans in Israel and about 110 in Lebanon.
I see. So we'll have to see how the situation turns out further. All right, Eun-ji, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.